Good afternoon, hello, and welcome to this special broadcast with News 18. COVID 19 is not over. We are past the deadly second wave of COVID 19, but we still wear our masks. We take all the precautions. Here's another seasonal problem that we have to save ourselves from. And if we don't take the precautions, even this one is quite a difficult one to get past. Dengue cases in the national capital, especially, are increasing in the last few weeks, and they have reached record numbers, as our colleagues are reporting from the ground. Sanitation, of course, is a huge concern. Seasonal change, that's when you witness dengue cases. But what makes them far more difficult and lethal this time? Why are the numbers higher? Political blame game continues over this entire issue. And whenever you're fighting a seasonal flu or something like dengue, information is of very, very crucial importance because it can help you take the right decision at the right time. Joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Sanjeev Bagai to tell us more about what are the precautions that need to be taken. When is it a good time to lower your guard? What are the do's and don'ts? And ghar ke nuske is fine, but when is the time that you really need to draw a line and seek medical advice and not really rely on your home remedies? All those things I'll discuss with Dr. Bagai. My colleague Prashasti Shandelia. She's been speaking to various people. Delhi government versus the NCD, Aam Aadmi Party versus the BJP. It always happens, whether it's a health crisis like COVID or dengue that we right now are fighting. Prashasti, we'll talk about the politics bit later, but first tell me about the number of cases which have been witnessed. Which are the parts of the national capital region which are seeing a surge in the number of cases?
Well, yes, definitely, Anusha. Well, this is definitely a worrying time because more than 1,000 cases of dengue have been reported from the national capital alone. And if we talk about the month of October, according to a civic report, until 23rd of October, more than 665 cases were reported only in the last 23 days. So yes, it's a difficult situation, definitely, and people must not let their guard down, as you rightly said, because stepping out is dangerous currently as the season is on. Initially, we were expecting the decline by the starting of November, but now what we are seeing is that the decline may take some more time because the female species of the mosquito, Aedes mosquito, doesn't survive below temperatures 15 degrees centigrade. So yes, but definitely we are seeing that the decline may take longer than usual, Anusha.
The decline may take longer than usual, and certain reports that point out it has been a high number of cases which are being witnessed. Dr. Bagai, when you see various patients, when you see so many people, there are a lot of things that people still don't know about dengue, though we face it every year. My first question: the types of dengue, what are the chances of reinfection?
Hi, good afternoon. So dengue is the most important clinical presentation is fever, high fever, very, very severe shaking chills. That's classical. And pain, specifically, not only in terms of the body pain, what we call as myalgia or simple headache, it's retroorbital pain. So it's pain just at the angle of the eyes above the eyebrow. That's classical of dengue. When dengue presents, always keep in mind these are vector-borne diseases. Every fever at the present moment need not be COVID. We have a host of tropical and infectious diseases. There are 4 different types of dengue, what we call as dengue virus 1, 2, 3, and 4. At different years, time frames, different strains take predominant. So a couple of years back, it was strain 2 and 4, which gives the severe type of dengue. So dengue can be mild, moderate, severe, or what we call as viral hemorrhagic fever. So the severe cases, although very small in number, can go into very, very severe hemorrhagic shock syndrome, which presents with classical bleeding from every site, and patients have a very high mortality. You can get reinfected. So dengue once is not a protection for life since there are 4 different strains. So you have to take protection. And very important point in this is your second attack of dengue very often is slightly more severe than your first attack because your antigenic base of the RNA virus has already sensitized your body immune system. So your body is already irritated with that kind of antigen protein. So the second attack often is an exaggerated attack. The third one can be even more. So always be careful. Don't take self-medication. Consult your doctor if you have any fever, practically more than a day.
Okay. Preciously, coming back to you, when you see the number of cases rising in the national capital, are there any particular areas which are facing a problem? Sanitation, of course, is always linked to, a vector-borne disease like dengue. Sanitation plays a very important role. Delhi government is also running a lot of campaigns around it. What is the MCD saying? Because we heard the Aam Aadmi Party leader Atishi saying the chemicals that you require, that an MCD requires, they don't have that thanks to corruption. That's the sort of allegation we heard.
Well, yes, definitely, Anusha, which is what we've been witnessing in some time now. That the politicization definitely takes place. It's recurrent every year. The same problem occurs, and which is when the politics starts shaping up. But yes, definitely coming back to your question, Anusha, if we talk about the specific areas, well, there are some areas, including the likes of Sadar Bazaar, Chandni Chowk, or Purani Delhi, some of the areas, if we would say, like Kiradi and Burari. These are some of the areas where the sanitization, the entire process becomes very difficult because the lanes are either too narrow or the people are not aware to the extent that they frequently clean the water. So these are some
Yeah.
of the problems which the even North MCD is facing currently. However, we also get a chance to speak to the North MCD mayor, Mr. Jay Prakash, who definitely said that yes, we are trying to do fogging. We are also trying to remove the water from waste, most of the areas, but it's the household which people need to be aware about. Most of the houses in different areas of the national capital, most of the people are not aware to the extent that they frequently clean the water which is accumulating over a time now. So this is one of the challenge, because of which we are also seeing politics shaping up now, as the Aam Aadmi Party leader Atishi blamed North MCD for the negligence, whereas the North MCD has also hit back at the Aam Aadmi Party, saying that the government did not do enough. Meanwhile, Anusha, we also got a chance to speak to the MS of Hindurao Hospital, and currently the MS informed us that the situation so far is under control. The medical health infrastructure is still not outstretched. But in the wake of all this, Anusha, it's just been yesterday when the Chief Minister has announced that one third of the beds reserved for the COVID patients will now
Yeah.
be given on
Yeah.
priority to the dengue, chikungunya, and malaria patients. So this is the current situation now, which is shaping up in the national capital. But yes, people still need to be aware, Anusha, which is one of the biggest challenges which the capital is looking at now.
Okay, Dr. Bagai, coming back to you. We all know about the basic sanitation protocols. The government also talks about it to make sure that there is no water which is locked in, your flower pots or in the garden areas. You have to make sure that you clean the water, you put some oil into it to make sure there is no breeding of mosquitoes. But usually, once the onset of dengue happens and the fever starts subsiding, a lot of people drop their guard. And you were pointing out that that's not the time you should drop your guard. That's the time you should be actually more careful with your body. What is the typical duration of dengue that really lasts? And what is the most critical period that one needs to be very, very careful about?
Right. So dengue normally has a couple of days of prodrome. Prodrome means a person says, I'm not feeling very well, or I have a little bit of body ache, no classical fever. So that's when your virus is building in your body. After that, it follows three sets of 7 days, 7 days, 7 days, 7 days. 7 days is classical high grade fever, shaking, body ache, chills, headache, vomiting, loose motions. When the fever subsides, the rashes come around day 5 to day 7. And these rashes are typical reddish hue. It's much like lipstick smeared over a person's body. It's much more prominent in fair skinned individuals, men and women. And the rashes come in crops. Classically, we see about 3 to 5 surges, waves of rashes. They can come all over the body. They can begin from any place. And once the rashes merge with the next wave, it is called as white islands in a red sea. So you see patches of white, otherwise your skin is red. And then, of course, your last set of 7 days is when you can get a resurgence of fever. So this is called as what we call as saddleback fever or camelback fever. So you see classically 2 humps of fever. So if the fever in the first attack goes away, don't be complacent because your fever may come back again. The downsurge of fever at the first episode is not the end of the story. It's then when you need very strict monitoring because the rashes come then and platelets start falling after day 5 to day 7. So you need continuous monitoring and you need to be in touch with your local doctor all through.
Dr. Bagai, my another question to you is, what are the do's and don'ts? Ghar ki nuski is great. We have home remedies for almost every seasonal flu that our mothers or our elders would tell us in the house. But a lot of superstition also comes around this issue. What exactly is the point that one should approach the doctor, and the need for hospitalization in dengue patient? How prevalent
Yeah.
that is, if one were to talk statistics?
Yeah, so just looking at different parts of your question, first of all, the strict do's are cover the exposed parts of your body at all ages, children, adolescents, adults, and geriatrics. That's your arms and legs. Initially, the teaching was that the mosquitoes are day-born biting or evening-born biting before sunset. I think that's all passe. These mosquitoes are rascals. They bite at all times whenever they want. The question of the load of the virus is the amount of RNA this mosquito, which we call as the Aedes mosquito, injects into the body. So it's a vector borne. It's from a vector, a mosquito, into a human being, which is the host. When you talk in terms of do's and don'ts, the real trick is bed rest. When we say bed rest, means rest in bed, not going around to the park, not walking, not running, socializing. So bed rest doesn't mean I'm not going to work but doing everything else. It's strictly rest in bed, because the body ache, myalgia, and weakness is debilitating. Till very recently, it was called as back-breaking fever. So the classical pain is so severe that you feel that your spine is actually breaking. You need to take a lot of fluids because your hemoglobin goes high. So we don't chase platelets as much as we chase hemoglobin or packed cell volume. Thicker the blood, more viscous it is, more the platelets get eaten away. So the platelets need monitoring as much as the hemoglobin. Do not take anything else except paracetamol in the required dose. Consult your doctor. There are strict don'ts. Do not take medicines such as aspirin, which can be lethal and precipitate death because it destroys an already fragile and depleted workforce of platelets. Second is, don't take NSAIDs such as ibuprofen, Vovaran combinations. Those are very, very bad. Don't take anything which is prescribed on the telephone or in a social gathering, kitty parties, or through a Baba or through a guru or XYZ. Karela, Loki, Tori, papaya ras, and leaves is nonsense. It's a 500% confirmed nonsense that should not be indulged with. Just adequate amount of fluids of every type. Don't take aerated drinks. Don't take self-medication. No need of any antibiotics because it can complicate the case further because you don't know what is happening once an antibiotic goes in. The required blood tests need to be timed very judiciously. The classical test is called as NS1 antigen. Don't do it in the first 18 to 22 hours because it comes negative. So it starts coming positive at the end of day 1 of fever. It remains positive till day 5 to day 6. If you have missed that critical period, you can get your antibody test, what we call as IgG, IgM, which will tell you what type and grade and duration of illness the person has had. The bottom line is consult your doctor. 99.9% of the time, it can be managed very well at home. Very rarely do we see viral hemorrhagic fever. A quick word on hemoglobin, anything more than 14 and a half pushing, dilute it with adequate amounts of fluids because dengue dehydrates your system. The second important point is don't worry too much about the platelets. If the hemoglobin is under control, it will look after the platelets. If the platelet counts, normal is between 1.5 to 4 lakhs. If our platelets are even 1 lakh, can be managed at home. 50,000 can be very well managed at home. Very rarely do we require platelet transfusions. Less than 8 or 10,000 is generally the figure, or 20,000 depending upon the case. But consult your local doctor.
Consult a local doctor. Don't self-medicate. Don't take, medicines over the counter without consulting a doctor. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, that was a very, succinct analysis. You very easily put it for all of us. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast, Prashasti, also getting us all the details. So that's all about dengue. Please stay safe. Take all the precautions. God forbid, even if you catch dengue, consult a doctor. And if you follow these protocols, that should too pass. With that, it's a wrap. But as we end this special show, the special broadcast, my colleague Prashasti filed this report about the dengue mayhem in the national capital. That's the report. You watch now.
Dengue cases in Delhi crossed the 1,000 mark this year, with nearly 300 fresh cases in the last week alone.
Anusha, can I log out?
But with winter coming, there could be some respite. Dengue virus is transmitted through bites of the Aedes mosquito, and this species does not survive in temperatures below 15 degrees Celsius.
Basically, the dengue, the mosquito, the Aedes mosquito, it doesn't survive below 15 degree centigrade. So now the night temperature is around 13, 14. So we are expecting these numbers will come down within a week or 10 days. These numbers will start coming down.
As the number of cases rise, a political blame game intensifies. AAP MLA Atishi accused the BJP-run MCD of negligence.
इस डेंगू के पीक सीजन में नॉर्थ एमसीडी के पास डेंगू और मलेरिया से लड़ने के लिए जो दवाइयाँ चाहिए, जो केमिकल्स चाहिए, जो फॉगिंग के लिए इस्तेमाल होते हैं, जो डोर टू डोर चेकिंग में इस्तेमाल होते हैं, आज नॉर्थ एमसीडी के पास वो दवाइयाँ ही नहीं हैं।
But the NDMC mayor has shifted blame to the ruling government.
मुझे लगता है इस बार क्योंकि बारिश बहुत ज़्यादा हुई है, ज़्यादा बारिश होने के कारण से जगह जगह जल भराव है और दिल्ली सरकार ने इस जल भराव को रोकने के लिए अगर जगह जगह पानी ना भरे उसके लिए कुछ नहीं किया। दिल्ली सरकार के सभी विभाग बैठे हुए हैं, हाथ पाथ धरे हुए, तो इसके कारण से डेंगू चिकनगुनिया के कुछ केस बढ़े, लेकिन नगर निगम अच्छे से काम कर रहा है, हम उसमें कंट्रोल पा लेंगे।
Government-run hospitals maintain that the situation is under control and the health infrastructure is not stretched.
So as far as actions are being concerned, right from our OPD and the casualty, we are taking full care of the dengue patients. Our wards are prepared, our stores are prepared. We have enough medicines and fluids for the patients. Our blood bank is geared up for platelets and apheresis. So whatever possible we have to do, we are already doing it. And now we are expecting a decline in the number of patients.
फैसिलिटीज़ तो सभी मिल रही है गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल में। तो ब्लड कल एडमिट किया था, तो कल ब्लड टेस्ट हुआ, देन उसके बाद मुझे स्लाइन चढ़ा है और RL, DNS सब कुछ। इवन मेरी सिस्टर है तो उसने मेरा काफ़ी मतलब ध्यान रखा है बाकी चीज़ों में, तो अभी प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुआ है मुझे।
Dengue cases across Delhi NCR are on a surge. More than 1,000 cases have been reported in the national capital alone. Meanwhile, we are also seeing politics shaping up on this particular issue as well, with both the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP-led MCD blaming each other. But amid all the politicization of this issue, it's the Aam Aadmi who continues to suffer. With video journalist Narendra Singh, Prashasti Chandela from Delhi, CNN News 18.